Thank you, Nizam, and hello everyone, and thank you so much for being with us this evening. It's a real milestone for us to be here with you today, and it's only possible because of the rich diversity of skills and experiences, both within the Algebra team and beyond, including this exceptional group that I have on stage with me here today, whose expertise in their respective fields brings a world-class perspective to the Algebra offering, and we are grateful for it. Algebra Decoded 2222 is only just the beginning. Philip, Kelly, Eamon, and Al, thank you so much for your support, and thank you for being here with us this evening. I know we've all been looking forward to this conversation. So let me start by stating, at Algebra, we are not just a FinTech, we are a movement that is committed to empowering the communities that we serve and bringing ethics and sustainability to the center of finance. Why is this movement so important? Philip, can I begin with you?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great to be here, Zeiad. Thank you very much for inviting me, and it's great to see so many people here at the launch tonight. Look, we are facing multiple challenges in our societies across the world as we deal with an aging population, dramatic changes in the technological environment around us, the need to decarbonize our economies rapidly. All of these things need drivers to support them to get them done, and finance is a tool by which people can, a tool that people can use to assert their values and ensure that their values drive what's going on in the world. Big finance has a huge influence on the way the world works, and enabling ordinary people and their communities to be able to shape the way the world is functioning through their interactions through the financial system is a massive democratization, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for those views. And Kelly, actually, I'll take it to you then. As somebody who represents one of the largest financial institutions in the world, what are your views on this?
I think we actually have a very aligned mission, that sense that we have a role to play in helping individuals, businesses, economies, the planet to thrive. And where does that come from? I think part of it's responsibility. I think everyone here will feel that personal responsibility and a desire to take that into the companies that we work for. But I think beyond that even, there's also a demand from customers. People expect us to live the values that they hold. They want to see companies that they partner with do that. And I think even beyond that, particularly in financial services, I think it's true to say that you can't have sustainable growth unless you have inclusive growth. You have to be serving communities where they're at and where their needs are at. And I think that aligned mission is why we're so excited about the partnership.
Good. Thank you. And Al, actually, I'll take it to you as well, because you founded two companies in the past. You've been a government FinTech ambassador. You must have some interesting views on this as well.
As Philip said, and Kelly, it feels like an idea whose time has come, and that's why I'm so excited to be here. I think having spent 20 odd years involved in working with big incumbent financial institutions, regulators and innovators to try and find this perfect storm, it's very validating to see great ideas like this rise to the surface. I suppose for me personally, and maybe people in the audience feel the same, even before COVID, we all feel quite helpless. Right? You feel like you want to make a difference. So I guess most people that are here are of that ilk, which is I want to do well, I want to feed my family, I want to work hard, but actually I'd also like to make a difference in the world. What we find over history is that to do that individually is really, really hard. And we sort of deify, particularly in this country, people on the way up, but enjoy kicking them on the way down. So where that brings us consistently is back to these tribes, these movements, this idea that by getting together with like-minded people, you can make a difference. And that's been sports, that's been societies, that's been communities, that's been politics for years and years. What's so exciting for me about the present is that we now have the technology enablers to make that viralise, to make that go global very quickly. And the thing that appealed to me most about this team and the way they think is it's a very off-centre way of thinking. It's not about a doctrine, it's not about a dogma, it's not about saying you must subscribe to these views. I think they recognise that all these views are in us anyway. It's how do we enable you to feel part of a community. So, that for me is what inspires me about this opportunity.
No, thank you, and you've been an inspiration to us as well, everyone on this stage, in terms of being able to bring aspiration and values together, because I think sometimes there's this view that somehow aspirations, values, and entrepreneurship should be completely separate areas. And Eamon, you've actually been on this journey. You're a second generation. You're a founder of a technology company that has become very successful. And there's obviously elements of where tech is going and how this is going to impact the world that we live in today as well. So I'd love to hear more from you as well, Eamon.
You talked about the way people feel, how I think that feeling is 10 times stronger with young people. I think young people today, everything they do has a sense of purpose to it, the company they choose to work for, the companies they choose to buy from, and of course, where they choose to bank and the apps they choose to use. We went through a period of many decades where doing good as a business was a nice to have, and for young people today, that's not the case anymore. It's very clearly, it's like a license to trade. And so the days of selling the best product for the cheapest price at the cost of the environment, or at the cost of your users' data, or at some other, bringing some other externality into play as a result of the business you do, I think those days are gone, for young people especially. It's just so important. And so, to answer your question about tech, I think tech and business are obviously so closely intertwined, but in particular in financial services, the emergence of the iPhone and smartphones and the ability to do your banking online is naturally an inclusive thing. You no longer need to live close to a bank branch to turn up and open an account. You can do it from a smartphone, which is what many of my old customers used to do and allow their customers to do. But I think tech can also be naturally exclusive if you don't build it in a very purposeful and intentional way. So something that we found, our product would allow businesses to onboard users just with a picture of their ID card and a selfie. You don't need to show up into a physical branch, you don't need to be physically present, you don't need to have a phone call. And that all sounds great, and that tech is inclusive in that it means anyone with a smartphone anywhere in the world can sign up. But at the same time, what we found was we built these models which would look at images of ID cards and people's faces, and we started doing some analysis on whether there was any inherent biases in the machine learning models that we created, and we found that actually, because our training, the data upon which we trained the models was primarily European and Caucasian faces, we actually had a 2 times higher error rate on skin tones which were darker. And so that's the way in which we built tech unintentionally that was naturally exclusive. And so obviously we corrected that when we trained the models, but it's an example of how businesses who don't really purposely build their technology in the future will get found out. I think it's something which is just not acceptable anymore, especially for young people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Philip, I'm particularly interested in your views on this because you've spent 10 years in leading roles in British government. So surely, or maybe you'll tell me otherwise, policy has a role to play there.
Yes, of course it does. But policymakers can help with policy, but it's entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs working with communities that actually deliver the goods. And I think the interesting thing to me, and I think we're touching on this already, is that what you're bringing together in Algebra is 2 things that are very important to a generation that we're addressing now. The first is tech. This is a generation that wants the very best tech, cutting edge tech, no compromise. but they also want values. Everything that they do, as Eamon has just said, is value driven. But bringing those two propositions together and saying to people that, you know, technology doesn't have to be values neutral. Technology can support and promote your values and the values of your community, and you don't have to compromise on the technology solution just because you are committed to a set of values, whatever those values might be, whether they're cultural, environmental, political, any kinds of set of values. And I think bringing those two things together so you can pitch to an audience and say to them, you can have the very best cutting edge tech and at the same time be promoting a set of values that you believe in, not loudly or aggressively, but just through your use of a platform, you know that you are supporting a set of values that are important to you, that are important to the community that you live in, and that you believe will make a better world in the future. So of course policy has a role, but I hesitate to use a very contemporaneous example, but too often you hear governments announcing policies. When you stand back and think, well, how's that going to work? The answer is that the most powerful thing a policy announcement from government often does is sending a signal to the world of business and to communities that this is the direction we're going in, so that people can start thinking about how they're going to mobilise to deliver within the framework that's being mapped out. Government, maybe it's my sort of traditional political prejudices, but I'm not a great believer that the government can do everything for us. Government can help shape a policy environment, but it's people, communities, businesses, entrepreneurs that make things happen, that deliver economic growth, that enable us to be better off. And actually, as we try to resolve these dilemmas, and all of the dilemmas we're facing in society really come back to the same thing, that we all want to be better off. We want to have better standards of living. We want our kids to have better opportunities than we have. But we want to do that in a way that protects the planet, protects the values that we believe in. And that's a huge challenge. And reconciling the challenge of wanting economic growth, and particularly in poorer, less developed countries where economic growth is very much needed, but doing it in a way that is reconciled with values is the key challenge. And platforms that can help to deliver that will succeed and prosper.
Thank you for those views, Philip. And I have to say I agree. I think government's role is to set a level and fair playing field, but not to actually get involved, particularly in execution, because that could go the wrong way sometimes. So that actually takes me on very well to my to the next part that I'd like us to discuss. And you know, I'd love to hear all of your views on this. So over the last decade, the world has been going through a major technological paradigm shift, and this shift has been it's gone through a major catalyst because of the events of the last 2 years. So, you know, we were shifting over to a more IoT model, to a digitized model, but essentially the pandemic has really put a huge catalyst behind that, and I think we've all experienced that. So how do we ensure that what we build going forward is actually built on a sustainable and ethical model? And how does technology and finance come together to make that happen? Kelly?
Can I start? It's sort of stating the obvious to say that technology is critical to finance. I think the more important question is to ask why. And when you think about technology and what technology has done for us, the way it's changed, the way we socialise, the way we exercise, I'm constantly counting my steps, the way we might drive a car in the future, it's not the technology that matters, it's what it's enabled us to do that matters. And I think it's the same with financial services. New tech is incredibly exciting, the power of it is incredibly exciting, but for me, its real importance is because it can enable new things. So the question that's incumbent upon us to ask ourselves is that the people we're trying to serve, the communities we're trying to serve, what is it that they need? how do we meet their needs? How do we help them enact the lives that they want to live in the way that they want to live them? And how do we bring technology to best enable that and to best serve that? For me, I think that's why technology is important. It's not innately important, it's important because it enables bigger and better things. So I know we're in conversations about, for example, are there ways of capturing how much carbon someone creates when they spend? If you understand how much that is, can you offset that by planting some trees together? That is helping to use technology to make a real difference, rather than being excited about technology for its own sake.
Philip? Eamon?
Yeah, like I said earlier, technology is great, but if it's not built incredibly intentionally, and this is one of the things I love about Algebra and the Algebra team, is how intentional you are about everything. It can have good sides and it can have bad sides, and I think for a very long time, technology was seen as very cold, like it's ones and zeros, and it just like does the job, and it moves money from one place to another, or it just services a page on your screen. But that doesn't have to be the case. Technology can be warm, and it can be something that really, what I think the Algebra team is trying to do, it can be something that helps people feel good about what they're doing and connect with their values and connect with their communities. So, but that doesn't happen by accident. It happens very intentionally, which is, I think, what every business is going to have to start doing from now on.
And I think you're right. And one of the key things that's very important to us is actually everybody who's involved with Algebra, everyone here, everyone on the team, all of our investors, our stakeholders, our partners. We make it very clear to them what our ethics are, what our values are, and we tell them, if you want to work with us, this is how we can work together. And thankfully, we've been able to really build a movement around that. And I think it's not just about technology for technology's sake, as you're saying, but we're also moving into a world where whatever you do, actually technology is going to be at the core of that. So everything is going to be digital, everything is moving in that direction. So we have to ensure that ethics and sustainability are the core of everything.
Yeah, I mean, technology is the great enabler, and technology drives productivity. Now, traditionally, productivity has been thought about in terms of enhancing economic growth, but it's not just an enabler of economic growth. That increased productivity allows us to do things differently in ways that deliver other objectives, for example, environmental objectives. And I mean, if you think about how technology has evolved just over the last 20, 30 years, there is no way we would be able to resolve the challenges that the world is facing, and environmental decarbonisation challenges are a good example. There's just no way we would be able to do it without the technologies that we've developed. And the technologies that we're developing now, and the financial system is at the heart of most things that we do, so the technologies in the financial system are hugely important enablers. They're going to be absolutely critical to solving all these problems that we know about, but more importantly, to preparing us to solve all the next lot of problems that we don't know about and we haven't focused on yet, but for sure will be there.
We'll open up a can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, when we've done decarbonisation, that doesn't mean it's all fixed now and we don't have to worry about anything else. There'll be something else that needs urgently fixing after that, and we will rely on technology to allow the human race, humanity, to continue to prosper with good and rising standards of living around the world, which fortunately we have seen over the last 20 years, 30 years, while dealing with those seemingly intractable problems. But technology comes to the rescue.
The core of it. Well, look, let me move on to my final question today. Ultimately, we are on a mission to reach over 200 million people over the next decade, and in doing so, becoming a British household name. What advice would you give it to us on this journey?
Yeah, excuse me. I think it comes back to the previous comment, and maybe it's just a slightly different way of framing it, but it's not rigid, is it? It's fluid. So it's a journey, not a destination. And as Philip just said, you can set a target, you'll get to it, there'll be another 5 targets after it. So the way you design your tech, the way that you build the movement, and the way you reach your 200 million is a horizontal challenge, not a vertical one. And so one of the things when I first got into the industry, we had 4 clearing banks in the UK. We had 4 high street banks, that was it. And they were based around the Bank of England and the Royal Exchange. And they set the tone, and they said, you give us your money, here's the deal, give us your money, we'll tell you when you can have it back, we'll tell you what makes a good citizen, we'll tell you the targets you need to set in life, get a mortgage, get a home, put your kids through school, and then we'll tell you if you've been successful in your life. Well, that's a lie and it's nonsense. And so what technology's enabled us to do is turn that on its head. And it's now fluid technology that enables us, because human beings actually don't need to be told what are the right protocols. They don't need to be told how to behave. They actually just need to be empowered. And so to get to 200 million, whatever the target becomes, because it will keep changing, it's about continually learning with your community. It's evolving with the technology that comes along. It's working with the regulators. People now talk about FinTech as if it's always been here. I can assure you, before the global financial crisis, if you mentioned the word FinTech in the UK, people would have looked at you like you're a bit weird. We had no choice but to reinvent the system, because we had a lockdown, vertical, controlling, hierarchical banking system. And that's changed, and now we have 10% of the global FinTech community in the UK. That's all been about opening up to new ways of thinking. So I think, my advice, which I'll continue to be, is by all means set sprints, because that's agile technology. By all means, so I think the world has now turned to these sort of three-month sprints, hasn't it? We have sort of January.
Al, I'm being given my cues that I need to stop.
Well, you don't need to stop because you weren't talking. I need to stop, is what you're saying. But I do think, just to finish the point, if you're part of the Algebra movement, which obviously you all are because you're here today, it's not about what Algebra does this year, next year, the year after. It's just the ripples that come from the pebbles in the pond, and that's what we need to keep working on.
Thank you, Al. Can I please get a sentence or two from each one of you?
So my advice for the Algbra team, I guess, is you're building an amazing product and something that people will love, but ultimately it's people who build products, and so you're going to be bringing on a bunch of people onto the Algbra team as you grow, reaching 200 million people is no mean feat, and you're going to need to find the world's greatest software engineers and designers and all this kind of stuff to build this movement and build this product, but bring people who have the skills and also have the passion for what you're doing, so really connect with the mission and the values of the company is just going to be such a powerful combination, so I would make sure you don't compromise on that.
I'm sure everyone's heard the advice that says make sure you can explain what you do to your parents, to your grandparents. If you can't, it's too complicated. I would just add another thing, which is make sure you can explain why you do what you do, because then that brings you back to the mission. And if you can't do that, then you've lost sight of the mission. I see no danger of that around here. But if you keep that at the heart of what you do, then you can't go wrong.
Zeiad, I think the key is you're going to grow very fast. I'm sure about that. As you grow, you need to be flexible, you need to be agile, but you must never lose sight of the core values that were with you when you started the business and that will inform this business. So I wonder how many small businesses starting up have set out a set of values and have then allowed themselves to compromise those values on the altar of growth as they grow. I don't think you have to choose between growth and maintaining the integrity of your values, but you do have to be very clear that while you need to be flexible as you grow, you don't need to be flexible about your core values.
Thank you. As I close this session, I would just like everybody here to imagine where Algebra will be for Algebra Decoded 3333.